Laughter in front of the Reichstag. This vast arena has been witness to some of the darkest chapters of European history, from the death of German democracy under Hitler to the death of his empire under the invading Soviet army. But now almost everything you see here, especially Angela Merkel's space-age office, tells a very different story.
This is not that nasty Germany you know from the 20th century. We're not communists, we're not Nazis, we're a nice, modern, transparent, open, friendly, fluffy Germany.
Take it from the New Zealand tour guide. Open, yes. Fluffy, why not? But thanks to its economic clout and its role as the paymaster of the Eurozone, also very powerful. For years after the Second World War, the joke was always that Germany was an economic giant but a political dwarf, a kind of larger, richer version of Belgium. Well, that's no longer the case. And this bit of real estate here, between the Reichstag behind me and the Chancellor's office over there, is now by far the most powerful in Europe. The question is, what do the Germans want with all that power these days? What's in it for them? Where better to start than with a logical friend in a crowded cafe. How comfortable is Germany with its newfound clout?
On the visible evidence, deeply uncomfortable. We're now, in economic terms, what the Americans are in NATO in military terms. And that's not a role Germany, in its worst nightmares, ever thought it could play again, even now with full sovereignty.
Isn't there a hint of national pride, even if it's unstated, that they've achieved this level of clout?
No, not really. There's a sense of everybody hates us, but we're still responsible for solving all the problems.
There are roads with traffic restrictions on your route.
Why can't anything be uncomplicated in this country? To understand the origins of Germany's hand-wringing over the euro crisis, we headed south on a time warp into the freezing fog of Brandenburg, in what used to be the communist East. Our destination was Wittenberg, former home to one of the first Germans who ended up changing the world. Martin Luther. He nailed his 95 Theses against the door of this church. His prime target was the Vatican's selling of indulgences, cash payments to wash away sins. Martin Luther, I think it's safe to say, would have agreed with Chancellor Merkel, the daughter of a pastor, that euro bonds are just another form of indulgence. In this soupy fog, the town of Wittenberg probably looks exactly as it did when Martin Luther lived and worked here 500 years ago, taking on the might of Rome and the Catholic Church, and not just triggering Protestantism, but also the Protestant work ethic. He was the first German to put the fear of God into people here about debt. And remember this, the German word for debt is Schulden. It comes from the word Schuld, which means guilt. Wir sind vom britischen Fernsehen. Kann ich Sie mal kurz... No wonder this is still predominantly a cash culture, weary of credit cards, intolerant of the very concept of living beyond one's means. Just ask them.
I mean, I don't want to have debts.
Yeah.
Who else wants to have debts? Not me. That's it. I mean, I work for my money and I can spend my money on things. It's better to have black numbers than red numbers on your account, isn't it? That's how we both think.
No point in arguing. Time for some coffee and poppy cake in Tante Emma's tavern. The eyes of Heidi the owner still mist over with fond memories of that swat amongst currencies, the Deutschmark. On the wall, amongst all the folksy kitsch, a reminder of the hyperinflated and disastrous mark of the Weimar Republic. 50 million for a loaf of bread. And on the table some euros, as well as a question. Are the Germans prepared to make the necessary sacrifices? Glauben Sie, dass die Deutschen Geld ausgeben sollen, zum Beispiel die Griechen und die Italiener jetzt mit ihren Schulden zu unterstützen? Do you think the Germans should pay money towards keeping the Greek or the Italian economy afloat? Was glauben Sie?
Nein.
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 Well, that's pretty obvious. No translation needed there. Why not? Wieso nicht? It's got nothing to do with pride or nationalism, she told me. It's just that we work really hard, and so should they. Back to Berlin, and no, this is not a spaceship from a distant galaxy, but the funky atrium of the Sony Center on Potsdamer Platz, the commercial heart of the rebuilt unified capital. When the wall was still standing, this was a deserted part of the death strip. Now it's home to some of the gleaming spires of corporate Germany, where iconic brands like Mercedes are a reminder that the euro has helped Germany sell the things it makes so well. Almost half the country's economy is now based on exports.
The machines are difficult to use, so sometimes dangerous.
Axel Stab works out of an alternative office block where you can cheaply rent a workshop to get your business started. His cutting machines are selling all over the Eurozone. He thinks that Germany should pay to keep the euro and that size and success translate into clout.
I think that's only fair if we pay the most.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're got the most people living here, so I think that's just fair. It's not anything about taking over somebody else.
Who would have thought that more than 2 decades after the Brandenburg Gate was opened, Germany has effectively become Europe's economic policeman? Chancellor Merkel has the power to tell the Greeks and the Italians how to get their economic houses in order. Berlin even has ways of making you quit if your name is Silvio Berlusconi. And herein lies the danger. Olaf Henkel is a bit of a maverick, a former business leader who once tried to persuade Britain to adopt the euro. He now believes it's all been a huge mistake.
Frau Merkel is all the time demanding stronger savings in Italy, more privatization in Greece, or another savings round in Portugal. I mean, if we continue to behave like this as a result of the euro, we shouldn't be surprised if the wonderful idea of an integrated, peaceful Europe is severely damaged, and that's exactly what happens. The euro is about to achieve the opposite of what the politicians wanted.
If that's true, perhaps it's just as well that most people don't know that the German finance ministry used to be the headquarters of Hitler's Luftwaffe. From her office, Chancellor Merkel now looks out over a fractious Europe, where leaders from David Cameron, due here tomorrow, to Nicolas Sarkozy are desperate for Germany to save the world by writing cheques and overcoming its hang-ups, both of which Germany is not yet prepared to do.